Okay.
Share via email. Report story. Chapter 7. 2 weeks is a long time in his book to not see his angel. But they had been a busy 2 weeks, flying from Japan to America, dealing with some mob and smuggling elements there. Ironically, a majority of their wants were related to assurances and increases in electronics smuggling. Not exactly what he thought he would be doing, but he managed the trade, negotiated out the terms between the sailors and the suppliers. Then he was back on a plan, passing through Osaka to deal with a turf war that was upsetting his information network. 2 ICU patients later and a nice subtle promise he'd dismantle and disembody every member of both gangs if they so much as winked in any of his other informants, or caused that kind of trouble in his city again, and he'd strolled out with 2 new clients. Clients being a loose term, read forced partners or blackmailed. Then he was back in Tokyo, meeting Finch. Finch was the handler for most of his smuggling, both of exotic goods, and other support items stolen, pirated, or otherwise from hero agencies and heroes themselves. It wasn't exactly something that made Izuku happy to be involved in, but it didn't hurt anyone if he helped direct, clear the shipments and get them through customs. It certainly didn't hurt the heroes after all. One grungy meeting place and 2 bowls of questionable ramen later, he'd talked with Finch, moved a shipment out of an impending hero investigation. Creedy's been taking an interest in black market support items and buried some of his more concerning purchases under a mound of paperwork. Then he called a friend on the way to his dead drop in Mustafu. Lemillion. Rabbit. Mirio's voice isn't quite harsh, but it's not friendly either. What's this call about? Social. How's Eri-chan? There's a hesitation, there always is when Izuku asks about the child. After all, Izuku is the one that brought him to Lemillion, or at least to his attention. Without that, and some information Izuku snuck into their files, there might not have been a certain operation. On the other hand, Sir Night-Eye might not have died either, but some things are unpreventable. She's doing well, starting grade school, and her quirk control is getting better and better each day. Does she still ask about Uncle Rabbit? Mirio huffs on the other end of the phone. Frequently. You should see her. You should not threaten to arrest me every time I do, Mr. Number 2 Hero. Did you know you were officially nominated for Most Eligible Bachelor Hero last month? You should reconsider your life choices. And yes, I have a feeling that was your doing, since it wasn't from my agency. You wound me. Izuku hums, rounding the corner on the street. His dead drop should be in the mailbox with the flag. Why so cruel? Why do you call? You can't expect me to help facilitate the rescue of a child like Eri-chan and not check in on her then and again. And send her presents every other month. On Christmas. Flowers on Valentine's. Really, Rabbit? He shrugs, humming into the phone. Deal with it. He decides, you didn't have to adopt her. Promoted stories. You'll also like. Return of Mokuden discontinued 3.5K45. This story is officially up for adoption. If anyone is interested, message me or comment on the story. Zero Deku Onishots 31.5K798. Because of circumstances, this book won't be continued, unfortunately. Feel free to check out my other stuff. Thank you for understanding. Not all heroes wear capes. Some just have 8.42.8 K 1.4 kilo. Everybody. This is a suicidal, depressed Deku book with Dadmic. Will their bond grow? Will Mike fuck up? Will Izuku try to kill himself? Find out yourself. Number 1 Radio. Free. Oni Shots 149K3K. This is a collections of free X readers. Requests on this are now closed. The hero who sings with a smile 39.2K367. Hi. Guys, this is my first story I write on Wattpad. I hope you like it after all. Fluke 11.4K802. Will edit once I'm free. N. This is a work of fiction, and any similarity with other works is purely coincidental. Excuse grammatical errors and misspellings. Eng, Convicted Hearts 3700. Like my other story but ILI longer. You didn't have to push the paperwork through. And yes, I realize what should have taken a year took 2 months. Convenient what greasing a few palms can do. He chirps, spotting the mailbox in question, the little red flag standing up and oddity in the nearly abandoned district. Tell you what, I have information on a freight coming in tomorrow, some girls that are supposed to be shipped up to Osaka this evening. I'll trade you that, for an hour with Eri-chan. Not going to bargain with me for time with Uravity. He stills, slowing to a walk a pace away from his drop. What do you know about that? He hisses into the receiver. Whoa 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 rabbit. Mirio laughs, I was just teasing. He pauses, are you actually interested in her? Or is she just another little pawn in one of your schemes like me? He scoffs, taking the next step and wrenching open the mailbox. I'd sell your ass in a heartbeat if it meant making her happy. Didn't answer my question. Mirio sings songs back, then his voice hardens again. Because if you hurt her. If I hurt her. Izuku snarls into the phone. You Don. He feels more than sees attack coming, whipping around just as the black bag is draped over his head. Then something smashes into his ribs. Distantly he hears his phone clatter to the ground, then shatter under a boot. Shit. A cord wraps around his neck, his fingers claw at it, pulling at the edges, but he can't be sure if the person strangling him is in front or behind. He kicks, flails, struggles against the binding, mouth sucking in air, but none of it reaching his lungs. Consciousness returns to him, but the only reason he can be sure of that is because of the blistering headache that accompanies it. The black canvas bag is still draped over his head, but it's accented by the weight of chains around his chest, the not so unfamiliar tightness on his wrists. Bound to a chair, he rolls his eyes. One of his favorite pastimes. Great. He shifts, cracking his neck as his fingers flex, feeling and searching for information about his captivity. Zip ties, arms behind his back. They're near the lock on the chain. Chain around his body. He shifts his feet, feels the gentle tug of zip ties at his ankles. He cocks an eyebrow. Who uses zip ties for his limbs but a chain to keep him to the chair? Someone that only plans to use it temporarily. It's a stalling, impermanent and set there because the captor is either dead or will soon be released. Quote. Figured out your situation yet, rabbit? The voice is hard and rough, like gravel smoothed over with shards of glass. But he recognizes it, because it's the man he deals with, and one that's a little more than familiar with him. Papa Damaggio. He greets. Interesting meeting you've called me here for. He flexes his wrists, listening to the room. Just like the first one. The man laughs, though it sounds more like a sputtering steam engine than something human. Jokes aside, you know why you're here. Do I though? He quips, unable to help himself. The pipe it rings when it hits him tells him that either Damaggio or one of his henchmen didn't find that as amusing as he did. He coughs, swallowing with some difficulty. He cracks his neck again after, straightening up in the chair with some difficulty. Uravity, he concludes. Glad to see that knocked some sense into your thick skull. Damaggio growls, but the position of the voice hasn't shifted. Which means there was at least one other goon in the room. What are you doing hanging out with her like? Good for business, he replies, smooth and steady. The pipe hits his gut again, and he grimaces. I doubt you'd buy I'm trying to get laid. The pipe taps the side of the chair threateningly. He rolls his eyes. How about I'm interested in her? Sound fair? Depends on what interesting does for our business. We noticed you tagged along to her drug bust recently. You cracking down on our gig? He can hear Damaggio move, leather shoes crunching the dirt on the floor as he walks around. Slowly making his way around from the right to the left. Was there a door on his right, or just a chair that Damaggio had been waiting in? We both know those hits had nothing to do with you. If anything, they were competition. I tipped her off to that shipment. They were smuggling in drugs and girls from India, and you know how I feel about that kind of business. Adamantly opposed. Damaggio agreed. All right. Still doesn't explain why you're hanging around the broad. He stops, feet shifting sharply as he turns to face him. Izuku grits his teeth, letting a mask of calm bleed into his expression. Broad. He'd fucking rip the man limb from limb if he called Uraraka anything dirty. He'd repaint Main Street red, dragging him from one end to the other. He'd hang him up from the Tokyo Tower by his own intestines. Don't call her that. His voice is smooth, but icy this time. She's respectable, which is more than a lot of heroes can say these days. The shift is noticeable, from mild tension to animosity. Bloodlust scenting the air like a putrid fish dumped into a shark tank. You siding with the heroes now? Depends, you cutting me out? Izuku replies. You're the one in the chair, I'm the one with the 5 other thugs and a gun pointed at your head. That would almost be threatening if you weren't too much of a bitch to import guns. The charging of a handgun, the semi-familiar raking of the slide and the cool feel of a barrel make Izuku reevaluate his snark. Those are new. Didn't get them through me. There were other less reputable supplier however. Didn't have to. DiMaggio snarls. You wouldn't sell what we wanted anyway. He flexes, feeling the zip ties on his wrists, racking his brain. DiMaggio had mentioned expanding territory, increasing firepower in two of his earlier meetings in the year. Izuku had countered by saying he could negotiate something with the rival gangs, to keep it nice and bloodless. DiMaggio hadn't looked impressed, but tabled the matter for another time. Their last meeting, it hadn't been brought up at all. Now he knew why. Didn't tell me you wanted handguns. I figured you wanted automatics. And I prefer not to sell those to the mob and Yakuza. Izuku replies, humming softly at the end of his sentence. He flexed his wrist, feeling the file slide down his forearm and into his palm. Boss. A voice behind him. Shit. He slashes through the zip tie on his wrists, reaching around and jamming it into his feet, frantic for the tie there. 4 sets of hands clasp over his arms, heaving him back up. Another pair rips the bag off his head, letting his consider Papa DiMaggio glowering at him over a mostly finished cigar. The room is a derelict warehouse. They've done meetings before here, but it's been cleared out of both the table, and the usual crates of good that occupy it. Not a good sign. DiMaggio is front and center, a foot away from him, and looking completely in control. Izuku glances around the room, absorbing as much as he can. Filing it away. Pipes on the wall. Steam lines. Gauges are empty. Useless. Chain around his body. Lock in the back. Hands restrained. Useless. 4 thugs in the room, 1 bruiser with a pipe. DiMaggio with the pistol still leveled at him. Training with said weapon is unknown. Door is indeed on the right. DiMaggio must have been waiting there. Understand your situation now, DiMaggio. He focuses on the mob boss, on the pristine suit that looks freshly laundered and pressed. On the slight stretch it has around the stomach, at the leisurely plumpness appearing in the man's limbs. Not quite in shape, not quite out of it either. Do you understand how to operate that thing? Izuku growls back. DiMaggio shifts, all smug satisfaction as he angles the gun up to the roof. He squeezes the trigger. It's thunder in a contained space, and the noise startles all of them. Well, nearly all of them. Izuku heaves as the thugs flinch, throwing his body out of their grip and across the room. The chair comes with him, given that it's lashed to his body, but at the moment, it's what he can get. The zip tie on his right leg snaps free, the file dropping to the floor, but his hands close around DiMaggio's throat instead of it. They topple over in a heap, and Izuku rolls, pinning DiMaggio's hands down, prying the gun from his hands. Then he's up, staggering for the door. He doesn't make it. He wasn't planning to. A hand wraps around the chair, slamming it back down to the ground, and Izuku with it his left leg pops free, momentum tearing it away from the chair. Finally. But his plans were distraction. Sleight of hand. He thumbs the side button, drops the magazine a hair and rakes the slide. A bullet tumbles out before he has it torn from his hands. Back to DiMaggio's, with the chamber empty, and all signs pointing to it not being. The mob boss is seething, hissing out angry breaths between his teeth as he glares at him. You pissed me off for the last time, you stupid fucking rabbit. Izuku grins, hands falling into his lap, thumbing over the chain. Don't get cocky. A gun isn't everything in a fight. DiMaggio levels the weapon at him, even as Izuku bundles up the chains, moves his feet slightly. He really hopes no one thought to wrap the chain around the base of the chair. DiMaggio squeezes the trigger. The firing pin clicks, a soft plink where there should have been thunder and death. DiMaggio jerks, frowning as he examines the weapon. Shouldn't have bought cheap shit. Izuku snarks, I mean, you don't skimp on what you need to work. Example, he tugs at the chain around his chest. You need this to restrain me, so you made sure to get a heavy-duty industrial chain. Nice thick steel, no defects. He wraps his hands around the coils and heaves, and the chains sweep over his head, freeing him from their confines. Thank God someone is an idiot. The chains pile up in Izuku's lap, but his hands are already on the lock, playing with it as he sits, calm and collected as DiMaggio fumbles with the gun. The thugs are stuck between wanting to beat him up, and watching their boss fumble with the gun. Here, Izuku cautions. In America they have a method for fixing jams. DiMaggio freezes, glancing at the 5 other men in the room. Then back to Rabbit. Then to the chains in his lap that Izuku is freely playing with. Tap the magazine. Izuku instructs, jerking his head at DiMaggio. The mob boss does so, and Izuku's picks slide into his hand with the sound. Now rack the magazine, he instructs, tilting his hands as the teeth of his toothpick find the keyhole. Hole. He only has a couple seconds. But it's a simple padlock. It's a rough movement, but it's done. The magazine slide raked back, scraping the next bullet off the top of the magazine and into the chamber. The lock clicks open and Izuku shifts it, clicking it back over one chain and not the other. And bang, Izuku finishes. He launches himself from the seat, chain sweeping out behind him as DiMaggio fires. The bullet pings off the metal chair, and the chain sweeps around, coiling around the man's hands as Izuku jerks it tight. He fumbles it, dropping it to the floor as Izuku steps forward. The chain is forgotten, left to dangle for a moment as he swings his legs around, a left roundhouse that topples DiMaggio to the floor, holding his stomach as his back slaps against the concrete. Boss. The chain snaps back out, skating along the ground to clear a path behind him as he dances back, away from DiMaggio, the gun, and more importantly, the goons. None of them go for the weapon, either deciding that they don't need it, lucky him, or it's too cumbersome for their quirks. He recognizes them though. Knows their quirks, their hobbies. Ken, you like living with your daughter, right? He tries, and the redhead with scales covering his arms hesitates. I'd hate to take that away. Otsuka, I know you're real happy sampling DiMaggio's stash. If I break this up, you'll have to find a new supply. He knows Otsuka is a pain, being able to turn his bones into swords. He's not someone Izuku wants to fight. DiMaggio coughs and jerks. Izuku takes a step back, towards the wall. The door is over DiMaggio's shoulder. The right wall. He needs to get there. Get him. And nothing will ever happen to you idiots. DiMaggio coughs. Fire springs free from the third man, Kazi's mouth, painting the floor between him and the door in orange flames. Izuku swings the chain, and the man ducks, letting it miss and circle back to him. Let's settle down, have a nice chat about this. Izuku reasons. No need for this to end in me braining you all. Lot of talk from a kid whose fucking quirk is analysis. DiMaggio staggers to his feet, winching as he rubs his stomach. Fuck you, Izuku replies. Potency isn't exactly an effective quirk either. Fantastic in the drug business where he can refine drugs. But not so much in combat. DiMaggio laughs, cold and cruel as he staggers back to the door. He rests against the wall, jerking his head towards him. Get him, boys. And then he's out, ducking out the door like the spoiled coward he is. Fuck. Izuku curses, glancing between the flames and the door. Come on, rabbit. Kazi crows. Make it easy for us, put the chain down. He pauses, glancing between all of them. They're punks. Young and gullible, taken in by DiMaggio's bluster and the thought of a mafia family. It's understandable. It even tempted him for a bit, but underneath all the sheen and shine are bad intentions, gunpowder and blood. Izuku swings the chain, jerking it back as Kazi and the other two advance. He's running short on tricks. He's running short on time. He glances at the wall behind him. Rusted sheet metal, nothing he can break through. But, hey Ken, you fat fuck. Izuku snarls. You going to loiter in the back like the little bitch you are. You want to keep your daughter safe but can't even kill a near quirkless informant. I thought you had thick skin as a quirk. The man jerks, blinks owlishly before roaring out in rage, rushing forward into a charge. Izuku sidesteps, chain going slack as he lets it slide to the ground. He waits a half beat, letting Ken cover the distance before he flicks the chain, wrapping it around the man's ankle and jerking it tight. He stumbles and falls. Momentum and size give potency to mass, and the man slams into the wall, and the rusted steel groans and protests the damage. Careful, he laughs. Ken groans, staggering away as Izuku rips the chain free from his leg, sweeping it back at Kazi. Fire engulfs the space in between, blinding him. He doesn't need his sight for his next attack though, and so he soldiers through it, putting his back to the blaze as he whips the chain up and back down. The fire cuts off abruptly as the lock attached at the end smashes into Kazi's head. The man drops to the floor with a thump. Izuku jerks the chain back, frantically coiling it around one arm as he skirts around the other four. Ken is starting to recover, shaking his head and staggering away from the wall. His eyes flicker to the gun. Someone gets wise. Sort of. They go for the gun, and in a flash, the chain is lashing out, knocking it away. They chase after it without a thought, and Izuku uses that break in focus, dashing to the door as he flings the chain back at the other two. He makes it this time. He bursts through the door and out into the fading sunlight. He recognizes the buildings, recognizes the layout, knows he's in trouble. Izuku feels it before he hears it. A burning shard of solid heat lancing through his shoulder, and muffled bang as the bullet hits the wall behind him and goes through. He can't help it. He drops to the ground, mouth open, lips gasping for air, lungs unable to do more than seizure through the pain. Shit, damn, he's been shot. He can feel it, through the blinding pain in his shoulder, the muted heat as blood seeps into his shirt, pouring out the back and soaking into the concrete. He forces his body to move, forces it to start moving. Because if not, he's really a dead man, dead in so many ways that don't matter but so many other ways that do. He rolls, wedging his arms under his body and shoving himself up to his feet. Another bullet pings off the concrete to his left. He can hear shouting inside the building. Also, those goods didn't know about the sniper. That at least kept them out of the mix. He rushes to his feet, adrenaline lending his body speed where pain muddles it. Another shot, it pings off the build edge as he slides around it. He's behind cover now, but he still can't rest. Izuku shakes his head. Gunshot wound. Needs pressure. Stop the bleeding. No massive spurts, so not an artery. Low pressure. He shakes his head. Houses. He flips through his memory but comes up blank. He stays in hotel rooms or just on the move when he's in Mustafu. He never has a singular residence in the area. Only reason he started hanging around was Uravati. Her agency. But the sun is setting. She'd be going home, and there's no guarantee anyone would be working. He'd be dead by the time someone got to him. Which means the other option. He bites his tongue, shoves the thought of getting flowers out of his head because flowers aren't going to help your bleeding heart if you're dead from blood loss. He eases his shaking knees to a walk. And then when he's cleared the edge of the building, a run. He's down the street, lungs burning up, barely stable in his rhythm. But he can do it, he can make it, he hears it this time. The crack of a gun, the rolling thunder a rifle of that caliber creates. Then he feels it, like a fist slammed into his side. He takes it, feels it punch through just above his hip, spins instead of falls as it rips out the back. He staggers, flailing hands to keep him steady. And God does it hurt. But he has to keep moving. He ducks into an alley. Runs through it and forces himself to climb the chain link fence, all the while biting his lip because it's so painful to move his legs. Painful like Kachan leaving burns on his arm. Painful like the fall. Painful like broken bones and ICUs. Painful like hospital bills piling up, one after the other. Painful like a funeral that shouldn't have happened but did anyway. Painful like moving on, painful like wondering if his mom was proud of him, instead of knowing. Painful like hoping he'd have a shot with a woman that was so much better than he would ever be. Painful like running and running and running down street after street, down alley after alley hoping he had gotten away. Painful like staggering to a stop in front of a door number he'd seen on paper but never really knew if it existed in person. He drops to his knees, the heat, the cold, the feeling bleeding out of his limbs. He didn't realize it until now, but his fingers are numb. His feet are fuzzy, a pulsing pain in his ankle. He slumps against the door, closes his eyes against it as his vision shakes and snaps closed and open again. He hopes she's home. He hopes she'll help. He hopes she knows he wanted to do this with flowers and wine and just different altogether. He hopes. He hopes. God, he hopes this will work out. Chapter 8. The thump on her door came earlier than she expected, but she wasn't opposed to it. Momo is known for being early for movie night, though. She glances at the clock with a grimace. An hour is kind of pushing it. Still, it isn't completely unusual for her to arrive this early and help with the prep work. Though, what prep work is involved when they have already agreed to order out, or having popcorn and chips with their movies is questionable, but nevertheless, she skirts around her kitchen counter humming to herself as she surveys the room again. Couches squared up in front of the TV, bowls of assorted chips are out on her little kitchen counter, and the door to her bedroom, i.e. disaster room, is closed. And an assortment of both Studio Ghibli and Disney movies are laid across her coffee table for them all to debate over. Momo would insist on The Little Mermaid because it was Todoroki's favorite. Mina and Sue would overrule her, saying Spirited Away was better. And she would always stick to the tried and true My Friendly Neighborhood Totoro. Momo Tilda. She sing-songs, approaching the door. You're awful early again. She pulls the door open, but it's not Momo Yaoyorozu that steps in. Instead it's a body that thuds onto the cream carpet and sticks there. She screams. She really does, and she's not at all ashamed of it, not when a dead body flops onto her floor and ruins her carpet and her evening plans. She stops screaming when she recognizes the dark green hair, the familiar physique of the man, the tattered, bloody and burnt button-up shirt and vest. Her hands cover her mouth, eyes raking over his body because fear has frozen her in place. He's a mess. His back is burnt, skin pink or charred, strips of burnt fabric clinging to the wounds. And then there's the blood, oozing out lazily from a hole in his shoulder, and another in his side. One of his hands is limply pressed to the one on his sides, but the blood is still leaking around it, pooling on her floor. He should be dead, and that's what snaps her back to reality. Back to being a hero and not a dumbstruck civilian. She bends, pulling him into her apartment and throwing the door closed. She'll clean up the blood later. She hopes he only just got to the door, because if not, there's no telling how much blood he lost there. Her phone is in her hands, and she's frantically calling the first number on her speed dial. Another hand on his neck, checking for a pulse. She fumbles, then finds the artery. Faint. There. Thready. Shit. Sue, come on, come on. She whines, rushing from her main room and into her bedroom, bursting through the door, knocking aside her scattered clothes and plushies. Then into her bathroom. The line connects, ringing. She's flinging things out of her cabinets, spare toothbrushes and toothpaste, hair detangler and makeup. Where's her kit? Where's her kit? There. She nearly throws herself into the cabinet, heaving the heavy medical kit out of the back of her bathroom cabinet. She activates her quirk, pulling it along weightlessly from her bathroom to the front room. Distantly, she recognizes that her door is open again, and standing in it is the usual suspect. Momo Yaoyorozu. Thank God. Momo. She yells. Questions later, lives now. And she throws the medical kit at her friend. There's a moment of hesitation, a moment of fear in her eyes before she catches it, setting it on the ground and bending over Rabbit's unconscious body. Rabbit isn't a hero. Rabbit is a villain. She shouldn't be giving him medical treatment in her apartment. She should be locking him up and putting him under watch in some locked-down hospital. And Momo should be too. But instead, injuries are substantial, 2 gunshot wounds to the shoulder and midsection, burns on his back. Blood loss is unknown, but substantial. Momo's switch is flipped, and it's no longer happy gal pal time, but hero time. Ochako. Ribbit. The phone finally connects. Sue. Uraraka parrots herself, then jumps into her demands. Questions later, I need you to pick up a cake, and gauze. I have some here, but we'll need more than we have for this. Questions later, this is an emergency. And she hangs up, fumbling through her contacts for the one she needs the most but uses the least. Recovery girl. She dials it, putting it on speaker as she joins Momo over Rabbit Izuku's body. Shit. She curses, hands frantically jerking back and forth over his body. Calm down, Uravati. Momo says, a pair of surgical scissors sprouting out of her palm and into her waiting fingers. She's careful and delicate as she cuts away the rest of Izuku's shirt, peeling it off him and shucking it to the side. They both hesitate once they see the wounds. His shoulder is the worst, and the skin around the wound is puckering and pulsing. The wound on his side is better, but marginally, it's a clean-through shot, and while it's bleeding, it's slower than his shoulder. The burns that decorate his back are another thing entirely, but they look mild. I'm going to call Shoto, see if I can't get him to come and freeze or cauterize the wounds. In the meantime, she flexes out a hand, and a fountain of gauze blossoms from her wrist, pooling out over Izuku's back. Stuff it, Ochako guesses, and Momo just gives her a grim expression and nods. They set to it, packing gauze into the wounds. Once they have, the bleeding slows, and from the medical kit, they slap on a pair of bandages. Front. Momo instructs, stepping over Rabbit to join her on the side. We'll have to flip him again to clean his back, but until then, we need to make sure he's not leaking blood out of the front too. They heave, and Izuku flinches, breath hitching in a way that makes her heart stutter and clench. It's hard to breathe, and the lump in her throat only gets bigger when she sees the front of his shirt. He wore the outfit before, the nice dress shirt, the neat black vest. Now it was all glossy with blood, and the white hopelessly lost behind red. Again, Momo's scissors come in handy in removing the garments, and again they throw them to the side, joining the pile. The front is better, and gauze is peeking through from their job on his back. Quote. You have a towel? Momo asks. I'll get it. She rushes up, back to the bathroom to grab one of her towels, knowing that after tonight it will be ruined. It's fine. It's fine. It has to be fine. Because he has to be fine. Because if he's not fine she can't be mad at him. If he's not fine, then that means he's dead. And if he's dead then she's not sure if her heart can take it. Why is it so hard to breathe? Sue has arrived, a mountain of stuff in her hands, and even her tongue is in use, balancing the cake as she steps through the door. Cake to Momo, Goes to Izu Rabbit, and fill in Recovery Girl. She's not sure when the dial tone switched to Recovery Girl anxiously asking what was wrong. Time isn't working right in her head. It's too cluttered, frantic. Uraraka drops to her knees to wipe the sticky blood free from Izuku's chest. It's messy work. It's fearful work. They clean up his chest, dabbing peroxide into the wounds, and flinching at every one of his hisses of pain. But the response means he's alive, and at the moment, that's enough. They pack both wounds with more gauze and seal them, flipping him over again to clean up his back. She doesn't even realize 30 minutes has passed until Mina is grabbing her by her shoulders, escorting her to the couch and dabbing her hands clean with a paper towel. She doesn't even realize there are other people in her apartment until Shoto joins her on the couch, fingers bloody, expression grim as he examines the movies, pointedly ignoring the body on the floor. Sweetie. And it's another hand on hers, holding it steady and forcing her to look up. Give attention to the voice, it belongs to Recovery Girl. He's going to be alright. Just needs some rest now. She lets out a breath she doesn't realize she's been holding, collapsing back into the couch. And she's crying, hot tears spilling out of her eyes and down her cheeks. She covers her face, trying to suppress them, mush them back where they belong, but she can't. Uraraka, Ochako, sweetie, a chorus of voices assure her, a dozen different hands dropping onto her knee, her shoulder, anything that's not intimate, anything that lets her know her friends are there for her. Uravati. She flinches at the voice, knows who it belongs to because an hour before it had been rattling off reasons in her ear about how Rabbit was dangerous. Lemillion. She whimpers. The hands on her clear, and she can hear them shuffling, hear the grunt of effort as she assumes they pick up Rabbit and carry him into her mess of a bedroom. She can hear Recovery Girl's gentle instruction, then quiet murmuring. And the door close, leaving her with Lemillion, and her friends one room away with a man that shouldn't be anywhere near her, much less being taken care of in her bedroom. I'm sorry, she murmurs. She trails off and shakes her head, letting her hands drop to her lap. He was just there, at my doorstep, and I reacted. God, I was just so scared. And you, I know you don't like him. I know he's a villain, but, she looks up at him. And he's smiling at her. She hesitates. He cares for you. Lemillion offers softly, another flash of a smile. Really? In a manner of speaking, he told me himself. Then the man stands up, towering over her in his hero costume, the proud, 1,000,000, on the front of his chest right in front of her nose. She can understand why people are calling him the symbol of hope. Just be careful, Lemillion murmurs. And he's lost a lot of blood. So. He shakes his head. I'm going to bring Eri over later, Eri-chan. His adopted daughter. Right. But for tonight, try to get some rest. He's stable. And he leaves, takes a few steps back to her door, and instead of bothering with the handle, just drops through the floor and out of her life in a blink. The door to her bedrooms bursts open, and all her friends spill out to the floor, a half dozen of her closest companions all called in to take care of one man they should be trying to capture, not care for. She's shaking again as they join her on the couch, Mina and Sue taking either side sandwich her between the two. Momo and Shoto slide to the floor, hand in hand as they fill the space in front. Kirishima doesn't let any of the intimacy bother him, and instead just slips into the kitchen, picking up bowls and carrying them over to the table, stacking the movies up and setting her party snacks in their places. And Recovery Girl just smiles, lingering at the doorway to her bedroom with a watchful gaze. It's too much to handle. And by grace alone, her friends understand, snuggling up to her as they fall into their normal banter, accepting her shaky silence as they discuss movies. Little Mermaid, Shoto demands unapologetically. If you're here to speak your mind, then I want Aristocats. Momo grins, elbowing him sharply. They glare at each other, humming softly as they claim the bowl of pretzel sticks as their own. Totoro, Sue recommends, and Mina agrees. It's almost comical how it takes a bleeding body and a not quite but probably villain to make them agree on a movie. Uraraka, Kirishima asks, holding up the three movies. His smile is tentative at best, but genuine, and she simply nods. Totoro it is. Shoto huffs, but doesn't reply, grunting as Kirishima loads the DVD into her player, turns up the volume and drops back into the loveseat he's claimed as his own. It's almost humorous. I'm okay, she whispers into their ears, forcing the words to come out steady. We know Ribbit, Suyu assures, her gaze flickering to the opening scene. We know. I'll be taking my leave now, dearies, Recovery Girl announces, tottering to the door. She gives the bloodstain on the carpet a long look before stepping around it. I'll send Izawa over in a bit to look after the boy. Somehow that's not as comforting as Sue and Mina staying over, but she doesn't deny her, or tell her not to send him. She's likely already called him. And he's likely already on his way, or already in her bedroom watching Rabbit. So, she settles in, content in the fact that Recovery Girl has tended to Izuku, made sure he wasn't going to die, and her friends are here, holding her tight and close and doing their best to make sure she feels loved and safe. And if a few random tears leak out from her eyes as she thinks about it, thinks about how much better it might be if a certain green-haired man belonged among them, filling the gap on the couch that Kirishima isn't inclined to take, that's her business. Where stories live. Discover now.